Lights on. You see, part of a good financial plan is having proper insurance to protect against loss of life, which leads to loss of income. Okay? Here's where we do things a little bit differently. We look at what a person has, what they need, and then we go around and shop and bring back options. Okay? We bring back ways to increase their cash flow so that they have the proper resources to afford them the proper amount of insurance. Okay? Very, very important. Now, step 6 is our biggest one. This is the big one. Step 6, if you listen to me, John, it will change the quality of your life. Step 6 is the one that everyone likes the best. Okay? Step 6 is building long-term financial independence. Okay? This is the big one. Now, there are two elements at play here, John. There's two financial battles you have to win the money game. The first is inflation, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. The second is the tax battle, because it's not what you earn that counts, it's what you keep. Okay? And taxes will kill you if you're not careful. As an example, John, have you ever heard of the rule of 72? Well, let's review that real quick here. Rule of 72 is the formula that banks and financial institutions use to help determine how quickly your money is going to double or compound at a given interest rate. Okay, so as an example, let's say you have a 4% interest rate. To figure out how quickly your money is going to double, you divide that into 72, and that gives you 18, which means every 18 years your money is going to double. As an example, if you have $100 at 4% interest, which means every 18 years, in 18 years your money is going to double to 200. What happens in another 18 years? Exactly, 400. But here's the problem. 36 years from now, will $400 then buy what $100 can buy today? Probably not. But that's inflation, okay? Where are most people saving, if they're saving at all? Banks, credit unions, fixed accounts, places they're not even getting 4%, right? Well, their money's growing, sure, but inflation is growing so much faster, okay? They're losing purchasing power, and they're probably never going to retire, right? Big problem. Big, big problem. Now, the one thing we can change here, okay, in this scenario is interest rate. Now, let's say you could get 8 to 12% rate of return. Okay? What can happen? Well, let's look at this example. It's almost magical. Here we've got a gentleman, let's say, age 29. He had $10,000 he invested. At 4% interest, every 18 years his money is going to be doubling. So at 65, he's got $40,000. Let's say this is you, John. You're 65, kids are out of the house is paid for, you want to retire. But you have $40,000 to your name. How long is that going to last you? Probably half the time the way you spend, right? Yeah. But seriously, a year, maybe more, if you're very, very frugal. Okay, but then you're out of money and you're a greeter at Walmart. We've seen it. The problem here is you've run out of time. Okay, who wants to be, working at Walmart after the age of 65? The one thing we could change here is interest rate. Now, let's say you could get 12% interest rate. Could you be financially independent at the same amount of time? The answer is yes, and let me show you. At 12% interest, 12 into 72 is 6, so every 6 years now your money is doubling. Okay, so in this scenario, started with the same amount of money. At age 65, here you have $640,000. It's amazing, isn't it? That the only difference between this guy and this guy is not more money, not more time, it's a bigger interest rate. But it costs this guy $600,000 Now, John, wouldn't you agree this is a pretty important principle to learn? And it's not about having $10,000 to put away. It's about saving a little bit of money every month at a decent interest rate. Okay? Here's my commitment to you, John. And can I be strong with you? If you will save for you every month at a decent interest rate, there will be a time where you will not be out earning your money. Your money will be out earning you. And at that point, it's over. Okay? You're financially independent. And that's what I help people do. Pretty awesome, huh? Now, the million-dollar question here is, where can you get 8 to 12% rate of return or better, where the test of time has been proven over 80 years, and your principal is guaranteed? You are guaranteed not to lose your money. Well, actually, there are 3 different strategies you can use, and I'll go through each one, and you tell me which one makes the most sense to you. Okay? The first one, and we've already touched on this one, this is your fixed account. Okay? Your fixed strategy. Fixed strategy says, well, you're going to be earning between 2 to say 4% right now, somewhere in there. 2 to 4%, you're guaranteed not to get any higher. And that could be the biggest risk of all. Safe. Guaranteed. The next strategy is on the opposite side of the spectrum. That's the stock market, usually through mutual funds. Okay. Now, here you have a greater risk of higher return, but also exposure to what? Risk, loss, right? We've seen a lot of that lately. The market's been pretty dicey, hasn't it? Yeah. So this one. Then you have the index strategy. All right. Now the index strategy, you have guarantee of principal. Okay. And you get to all interest earned in the index strategy is linked to what the S&P 500 index does. Okay. But you're also protected from any of the downside risk. You're guaranteed not to lose. So you can only gain and not lose. Okay. So in here we talked about a higher rate of return as well. So 8 to 12%. So here you get to play in the stock market on the index, all gain, 0 loss. Okay. Of these, which strategy sounds the best to you? Index strategy? It's a very popular strategy. Let's look at the index strategy here, or the S&P. Let's talk about the S&P. Have you heard of the S&P 500, Standard & Poor's 500? Okay. Well, the S&P 500 is the index is the most widely held companies in the United States. Okay, representing over 100 industry groups, from health, technology. It's about 70% of the domestic equity market capitalization, about 70% of the U.S. economy. Okay, but get this. I mean, the fantastic thing here is the S&P over the past 80 years has averaged a little over 10% per year. Okay, a gain. So in other words, if let's say you were around, and that's since 1925. That's over 80 years. Let's say you were around in 1925 and you had invested back then at 10% in the S&P 500. You'd be pretty happy right now, wouldn't you? Yeah. So here's how the index strategy works. The index strategy, interest, all money earned, interest it's linked to the S&P 500 index. Okay. So it's averaged 8 to 12% per year. For the past 80 years without any of the downside risk. Okay, so you have all the gain and you're covered from any of the loss. Okay, so you can see your principal is guaranteed. You participate in the growth of the S&P 500, but again, you're protected from any of the downside. As an example, let's say you had $10,000. Okay, and you had invested, as we